I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Playing from the Tips, the new show from Golf Australia magazine, previewing all the golf action from around the world, with some insights from our so-called experts who will also offer their picks for the week as to who might win. Quite unbelievably, this isn't episode 1, this is episode 100 of Playing from the Tips podcast, Golf Australia magazine's preview and tipping show, and they said we'd never make 100. Apologies for the quiet there. I was waiting for applause or some sort of fanfare. But
I'll put some in, Jimmy.
There you go. That would be wonderful.
I haven't made 100.
No, we'll get to that very shortly. My name is Jimmy Emanuel, and I have the inauspicious honour of hosting this show each and every week and attempting this week to steer conversation on the Challenger PGA Tour of Australasia, LPGA, PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and of course our wheelhouse of TGL. And alongside me for almost the 100th time, bedrock of this show, golf podcasting everywhere, surrounding us with cameras this week and making me feel like Brian Henderson. Who else but Rod Murray?
Brian Henderson?
My favourite newsreader of all time.
Who was the last... Yeah. Who was the last newsreader as famous as Brian Henderson?
He's not as famous, but Richard Moorcroft went for it.
On the ABC. Yeah. Roger Klimpson, I suppose, on Channel 7 might be.
Brian had a jingle.
Brian told me so. Brian told me so.
Yeah.
Terry Hills every day.
I sold Brian Henderson his golf clubs.
Did you?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Terry Hills every day, is that?
No, Eleonora.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Wonderful man. But welcome, Rod. Making far less than appearances in the 90s. Some would call him an impact player, rare stints and starts, bringing brevity, humour, and once or twice across 100 episodes, some research. Adrian Logue. Welcome, Logue.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's been an honour to be participating in 80 odd episodes.
Yeah. 80? Nah, there's no way you're at 80.
Difficult to imagine that being less convincing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Before we get into our regular look back at last week, look back at 100 episodes, anyone remember anything?
Not anything specific, but it's just been interesting to see the thing evolve because, of course, it was Brendan James, the previous editor of the mag. It was his idea to go from written previews each week to this format. Godsend in some ways. Those written previews, Jimmy, you would know were brutal. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't know, because you're not what we call working media.
No.
Yes. But the written previews were brutal. This, despite Logue's worst attempts, actually is almost equally with the research you got to do because you're not only got to do the tournaments you're doing, but you've got to have a tip for the other ones as well.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But it is well received mostly. Some people often come up to me at golf tournaments, tell me they like it and enjoy it. And we've introduced Who Would Logue Pick, which I think is our number one segment we've ever done on a podcast.
Probably should start actually thinking about that before we get in here on those days.
Because last week it brought some success. We'll get to that very shortly. But on last week, golf-wise, highlights, lowlights, otherwise, of course, Live Golf Adelaide, biggest show in golf last week, Genesis Invitational as well.
Carved out a very special place, this Live Golf Adelaide. I watched it. I'm not generally a Live watcher. I'm not an often golf watcher, truth be told. I watch kind of bits and pieces from what I need to do this. It was a pretty good finish. The course makes it. I just keep coming back to this, that the problem with that tournament is everybody loves it and it's their champagne. It is not financially viable under any other circumstance. People say, look how successful you could be in Australia. You could not afford that field. Half that field, even independent.
Even taking out the field, there was a report by Sam McClure yesterday. So they released the attendance numbers at 102,000 for the 3 days. The two DJs, Fisher and Dom Dollar, it's reported by Sam that $2.5 million that cost.
Wow.
Oh, really?
So just for the two DJs, estimates as to how many were there was between 10 and 25,000 people to watch the DJs, but that's including ticket holders from the golf. Your ticket for the golf gets you in. Some people come just for the DJs. It's a great festival. I was there before and I've been to other events similar, but that's in that financial viability. It comes into it. It's a big question. And then you add the players on top of that.
In fairness, that's also true of all of our tournaments here in Australia. None of them would survive without government funding. And it's true of Live as well. But in terms of once you've got the tournament going, goodness me, that field, what would be the appearance fee for the top 10 on Live? You'd be pushing 100 million?
In a way, though, that's an endorsement for the model that lives.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, it's a way to get the best players assembled every week without having to pay ridiculous appearance fees. Although the government, this tournament is a little bit unique.
It is
isn't it? Because the government, I think, we don't know the exact figure, do we? But it's something like $5 million or something, apparently, and now been extended to 2031, depending on whether Liv's still around in 2031 and whatever form it's in. I don't know, but nonetheless, I think that is an interesting aspect of this, that we've now got Rory talking about what a unified tour might look like, and potentially, that he said something about it, maybe looks like F1. Yeah. And
that's been talked about,
and that's the idea with F1. You've got to go to every week,
and you've got to have the big name players every week. They're the two things Liv have definitely got right,
and they turn up to a lot of weeks now as well.
What is it? Oh, the F1, or you mean, or the
F1? It's like they keep extending the season, and
I think there's dangers in that. The other thing I think they've been really smart about, Liv, is staying in Adelaide. Had they moved to Sydney or Melbourne, which must have been tempting, much bigger markets and all that sort of stuff, I think it would not have had the same impact. When the Australian Women's Open was on in Adelaide, it was on around the Fringe Festival time. It was a brilliant time to be there. You had the golf, you had comedy stuff, you had art stuff, you had music. I think there was Guns N' Roses were playing one year when we were there. Hard to get accommodation. They've really nailed it with Adelaide. That sort of tells you something as well. So if we do get this unified model, you would think, because it's their only really successful one.
It is, yeah.
Adelaide, and it's unbelievably
It's the only one that pays
successful
for itself as well. The rest of them they fund, obviously.
Yeah. So look, it's a really interesting thing. There's lots to learn from Liv. They're here to stay. We know that. The PIF, that's clear. So how do you make the best out of it that you possibly can? And that's a fabulous example. You could easily build, well, you must be thinking about it at the office internally, Jimmy. The Australian Open and the PGA in February around Liv. Better for the women. If you want to elevate the Women's Australian Open along the same time, there's no reason you couldn't do something with all of that and have a 3-week stretch here in Australia that all of the tournaments would benefit from. So there's lots of potential for good stuff. Who knows where it'll end up, though.
No, exactly. Agree with all of that. And on the PGA Tour side, it was second time at Torrey Pines, but Ludwig Aubert, very impressive.
Very impressive. I've enjoyed watching the last 9 holes of that.
Yeah, really. The last 9 were really good.
Aubert played some really good golf, and I like that. Denny McCarthy was in there as well. I really love watching him. And that, Torrey Pines, for everything negative that you can say about it, it produced a diverse range of golfers in the final there. Maverick McNeely was just sort of like powering through the rough, and Oberg was just playing some sort of majestic golf, and you had Scheffler chipping in and holding bunker shots and stuff. It looked pretty amazing.
There was a danger late that could have turned into something very uninteresting if Aubert hadn't made those birdies, because if McNeely had won it, he was 3 or 4 groups ahead of the finishers, and they were so far behind. It was just going to be, it would have been like, okay, well, let's just call the last 4 holes while we give him the check. But how's Patrick Rogers not won a golf tournament with that?
I don't know.
It's amazing.
He just
makes no
everything
sense
about him since he came out of college. He was a superstar at college.
He's got the swagger,
and
he's got swing,
really good putter too.
Yeah. Just everything, very professional and everything. He does come out and played a couple of Australian Opens,
that's right.
and you would have thought even those. He comes out and you would have thought, come on, this is your sort of thing. I think he's one that can go anywhere and play anywhere. Joaquin Neiman's a good example. Last week goes and wins Live Adelaide. Clearly that guy can play anywhere. Patrick Rogers is kind of the same, but just never got.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It's a bizarre.
Funny old game.
It is hard to win because we didn't manage to win it all last week either. So we only had one top 10, which was a Who would Logue tip, and it was Logue with Ian Poulter at Live Golf Adelaide.
Unexpected.
Unexpected from you, unexpected from him, and unexpected
I
from
certainly
the rest
didn't expect it.
No, I'm sure you did.
Despite having looked at what happened at the what was it, at Victoria where he
where
Masters?
He won the Aussie Masters.
Beat Jeff Ogilvy in the sort of final round head to head. That's what you based it on.
Why you would have tipped him.
Yeah,
right.
This sort of golf will suit him.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So that means we are at 18 top 10s, 10 wins for the year, numbers which are unrivaled by any podcast with one person spending their week at Castle Hill, Rod.
One day we are going to get an email from somebody
who's
going to say, actually, I was at Castle Hill all week and I do a podcast as well. Let's hope it's this week.
Yeah, I'd love that.
That'd be great.
Speaking of Castle Hill, we will start there. The final Webex Players Series event of the season, and that is the Sydney event this week. Challenger PGA Tour of Australasia, WPGA Tour of Australasia coming together, men and women, one title, one prize money, all at Castle Hill Country Club. New host this year, Peter O'Malley, replaces Braith Anasta. Peter O'Malley, very invested as a host, and he's going to play the event as well. So had some back surgery. I think it was early last year or late the year before, and he's moving around a bit better, and I've been speaking to him a bit, and every time he seems to be cleaning something on a farm somewhere. So he's probably in pretty good nick, Pom. But golf course is very much, I'd say, pretty typical of suburban Sydney. It's hilly, it's tree-lined, but it has had a redo by Bob Harrison a couple of years ago, and it is far, far better than what it once was. It got a lot of rain before last year's event, played really slow, greens really soft. It didn't get to show itself at its full capacity. Out there yesterday, had a good look. It is in much more tournament-ready condition, I would say.
Still kike, Jimmy? They haven't changed the glasses?
Yeah, it is, yeah. But it should show well. It'll be nice and hot, humid, everything you don't want when you're an on-course commentator, but that's the things we work through. But it's actually a really good field as well. So Brendan Jones plays this one almost every year. He's a Castle Hill bit of royalty. There's photos of BJ all around the place, and he was a club champion and Aussie amateur winner when he was there. Jed Morgan is back to make his first start of the year. Guys like Jake McLeod. You've got a list of winners all season: Blake Proverbs, Jordan Doole, Phoenix Campbell, Jack Buchanan, and the like. You've also got guys coming back who've played a lot in Asia, guys like Maverick Antcliffe, Anthony Quayle, Justin Warren continues to come back from foot surgery, Harrison Crow. And on the women's side, Momoka Kabori is a standout. Momoka plays very well in Australia and has gone well in these events before. Kelsey Bennett getting ready to play the LET run here and start her year. Meg McLaren, favourite of this show, or at least these people. Jongmin Cho. Cassie Porter is back. So made an LPGA Tour start, has come back, playing here, and then we'll go back and start playing LPGA Tour events. So pretty strong field all round, really. Some really good amateurs too, actually. Declan O'Donovan, who's had some really good finishes, member of Avondale Golf Club, and Rachel Lee and Jazzy Roberts are a couple of standouts as well. Let's get some tips. Logue, why don't you start?
Well, this is just classic Sydney golf, isn't it? The quintessential Sydney
is,
golf course, Castle Hill.
Sydney golf.
You've got lush Kaikuyu giving way to dusty clay-based, rough under tree-lined fairways, and brought in sand with the new renovation, and very hilly. And so I'm going with the Sydney golf specialist, Brendan James. Brendan Jones.
Brendan
James is our Sydney golf specialist.
Yeah. You might need a cart, but
but no, Brendan Jones. And interestingly, Jimmy, he has the most top tens in this event, the Sydney Webex Players Series Tour stop.
Where do you pull this stuff from?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, look, if you like that one, Rod, then you'll love this. He's also has the most birdies in this event. In the Sydney Webex Players Series. 49 birdies.
Probably your number of podcast appearances. So that's a very,
that includes nice symmetry. This, I take it. It's only been here, this is only the second year here, isn't it? He didn't make 49 birdies last year.
The whole event.
Yeah. Back to
which has been going, I think it was
4 years,
3 years at Bonnie Doon, and then this is this is fifth. Yeah.
Genuine birdie maker, Brendan Jones.
Yeah.
Especially in Sydney.
He'll feel at home out there for sure.
He will. He genuinely, and is Champions Tour this year. So
what, you're joking already?
So he's getting ready to go.
Yeah.
And he is, I saw him yesterday.
What a fantastic.
He is in the best shape of any 50 or 51-year-old I reckon I've ever seen.
COVID might have really worked for him. He put down the clubs and went landscape gardening, genuine hard physical work. And it may just be that I think he did it for nearly 18 months. He didn't touch a club.
Yep.
And he came out a specimen from that.
Rod, a tip from you? Now that you've finished waxing lyrical about Brendan Jones.
I do like Brendan Jones. It just reminds me how old I am. I interviewed Brendan Jones after he won the Australian Amateur. In fact, I'd been covering him before he won the Australian Amateur.
1999, I think he won the Australian Amateur.
He's now going to the Champions Tour. So how does that make me feel? I like Jake McLeod. He's played too well all year not to notch a win at some point. And after what was a disappointing last start, I think he'll be back. But I also am thinking about Cassie Porter. She had a shocking second round in her LPGA debut, back on familiar turf here in Sydney. I think she'll do really well. She's the sort of player who that won't bother her. She'll just come back from that. Some players would be really knocked by that. I don't think she's one of them.
We saw last year at this event Jenny Shin played and was that step above the majority of the women's field, not all, but a step above. And where the tees have to be at this sort of golf course, it's not a big tournament venue where there's a lot of teeing grounds. You got to squeeze them in a little bit. There's some holes where there's a really significant advantage. I think it's the fifth. There's a par 5 down the hill is one where they can carry it over the hill and get a big bound down. And Cassie's the kind of one that if she works out how to take advantage of those, could be very dangerous. I'm going to tip another local, Jordan Zunic.
Yeah, not a bad call at all.
I'd call him a Sydney specialist. I know he's ever won in Sydney, but he's a Sydney specialist.
He's a flusher.
He is.
He's one of those guys, the ball makes a different sound. There's a few of them, but you hear it fizz off his club, and it's like, wow, how do you do that?
It's got big levers too.
Has got big levers.
And enormous feet.
He's a basketball fan.
Yeah, his brother has played basketball for Australia, I believe, but plays in the NBL for the Perth Wildcats. His dad was a Sydney Kings legend, Zoran Zunic, one of my favourite names of all time.
Good alliteration.
Still working out life on tour with a baby. Had a baby recently.
Too much talent not to have a better resume.
Correct.
Jordan Zunic.
Agree. So let's move along and let's go to the LPGA Tour we've mentioned a whole lot of times because that's a pretty significant event this week. Rod, the Honda LPGA Thailand.
Indeed. This Asian swing is a really good idea from the LPGA. They get terrific fields on decent golf courses, and they seem to always have good events. So LPGA Thailand, 20th anniversary next year. It's only been with us since 2006, which I was kind of surprised. It's one of those tournaments that's made its place in the calendar, and when it comes around, you know this is an event worth watching. So limited field and no cut combo helps that because, of course, the top players all like to play limited field, no cut, guaranteed pay, decent purses, so it makes it worth making the trip down here. 7 of the world's top 10 here this week, 6 past champions as well, so you know that it's going to be a good show. The Siam Country Club Old Course. Have you been there, Jimmy? Is this the one that's spread over 7 locations in Thailand?
I've been to Siam Country Club, but Siam Country Club has something like 97 holes across 4 different properties. I think I've been to this one.
The Old Course.
I'm pretty confident I've been because the Old Course and there's another course.
Waterside or
there's 36 holes, and I've definitely been there for a Women's Amateur Asia Pacific. So I think that's this one.
All right. Well, Siam Country Club Old Course, if you do know it, the players certainly like it. The scoring here is off the charts. In fact, you've got to go back to 2015 before you find. Is it 2015? Yeah, last time that it didn't get to 20 under for the winner. So that's 9 years it's been 20 under or better. Nana Kurtz Madsen-Holzer got 26 under in 2022 and won it in a playoff. So there was 2 of them. So if you like lots of birdies, this is going to be a good week for you. You'll see a lot of it this week. In terms of players and the field, as I said, it's a pretty strong field. Well, very strong field, including last week's PIF Saudi International winner on the LET. We don't cover the LET week in, week out generally, Jimmy, but big one in the Saudi International last week, won by Gino Titicon. She'll probably be the favourite again this week. She's got good form at this course. She's had a 2nd and a 3rd here. Didn't play last year. No shortage of competition. Lilia Vu, Paddy Tanakit, who's the defending champion, who I really like. She's a great player to watch. She's got lots of personality. Hits it good, hits it bad, but you get to see how she's playing no matter how it's going. 3 Australians in the field, Gabby Ruffles, Steph Kiriakou and Grace Kim. Hira Naveed's the first alternate, so she's a chance. No Hannah or Minji. Scheduling is starting to become an issue for LPGA players, isn't it? The way we see for PGA Tour players. There was a time when there weren't enough events to really worry too much about scheduling, but now you kind of got to pace yourself, so we won't see those 2 this week.
Part of the issue is they now go to America to start the year and then they come down here, and both are obviously based in Perth. They were here until as late as possible. Hannah may have even come back. They both are people who like to spend time at home. It becomes difficult to do that much.
It's a lot of commuting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
maintaining a world-class golf game while you're doing that is not as easy as it might look from the outside.
No, and I know Richie Smith is very strong on time off and on working on your game and on when you're particularly coming out of your break and you're developing or working on something particularly. Too much tournament play too early can ruin the year. That's a very much something to be mindful of, that you come out of your break and you go and play so many events in a hurry and something's not quite right, you spend the year trying to fix it rather than getting in a good place and then going to start your heavier work.
Especially if you're a Hannah Green or a Minji Lee who have a lot of demands on their time early in the week as well. When do you actually work on your game?
Yeah, well,
you've got a travel day, you've got a press day, you've got
Minji switching to the long putter. That is a massive change to try and get used to.
She'll
be very
huge.
careful about her scheduling.
Exactly.
But it went all right for her. What did she shoot? 62 in that?
Yeah, that's right.
First tournament of the week. Anyway.
Long putters go great for everyone.
The course is pretty typical. Sometimes. Yeah. How many have you got behind the door?
Peter O'Malley this week, perhaps.
Yeah, Pom will have one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Never seen him with the long putter, Pom.
Yeah, no, he goes a bit of long putter quite often.
It must be a long time since I've seen Pom play. Course is pretty typical of what we see in Asia. It's sort of dictated mostly by the weather and the sorts of grasses you can have, which dictates what you sort of get around the greens. A lot of diagonally set greens here where you're hitting into sort of back left to front left to back right or the other way around. So iron play pretty
Interesting
important.
observation, Rod.
Sorry?
That's an interesting observation from you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Only taken 100 episodes.
Yeah, I finally had an insight. Next insight will be his first. Iron play really is what you look for here. So it's early in the year, hard to tell who's in form and who's not, but I'm going to go with the defending champion, Paddy Tavatanakit. She had one bad round in her one tournament this year, and the other three were pretty good. So, and at home in Thailand, she'll be feeling good. So, Paddy Tavatanakit for me.
Low?
I like last week's winner, Gino Tidukun. Coming off a win last week, I feel like even it wasn't an LPGA event, but I often feel like the hot player on the LPGA Tour often gets on a bit of a, like, continues that heater, and you see a few wins knocked off in a row, and I think this is an excellent opportunity for her.
Absolutely.
She's going to feel comfortable.
Things. Less depth, I think, in the LPGA. So if one of the top players is playing well and has had a win, you know they're going to be there again next week. The other thing is, I think 2025 might be Gino's year. She's been the world number one. It's not like she hasn't played her best, but last year was a bit of a funny one. She really started to come right towards the end of the year. She's an extraordinary talent.
Played very well last year without
a lot of getting a lot done. And I might say, played very well at the Women's New South Wales Open at Dubbo a few years ago. I was out there as well.
Well, you might say that. That is quite useful. I am going to go with Lynn Grant. You mentioned iron play. Few better. I think she's in for a really good year, and I spent a bit of time with her in Germany a couple of weeks ago, and I was very impressed by what she sort of spoke about with where her game's at. And everything.
I want to fill out why you were spending a bit of time.
I was
in
there with
Germany
Adidas, and it was an interview thing set up, and I'll be writing about it at some stage, but it was very good. All right, on we go. Let's go to the PGA Tour. Mexico Open at VidantaWorld?
VidantaWorld.
One word?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And two capitals?
Smushed together with a capital.
Yeah, all right.
W for
there's
world.
a capital with no space after the A. That was W.
Correct.
Is a capital as
Correct.
VidantaWorld. Yeah, it's like a brand name. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Probably changed by executive order.
Well, this is the Mexican Open, or as in France, they would call it the Open de Mexico. Or perhaps in America, they're considering renaming it as American Open. Yeah. Vedanta, if you're curious, is a collection of luxury resorts and hotel brands in Mexico. VidantaWorld is the chain showcase property that includes theme parks, and there's a circus
How do you start that
VidantaWorld.
business? How do you think this? I'm going to start a chain of resorts.
Yeah.
Probably need one.
Yeah, launch this. Where am I going to launch it? Yeah, it's a hell of a
general rule.
It's the same way you'd start a birdie streak. You just make a birdie.
Yeah, you make a birdie and then you'd get another one, and then suddenly...
when you got two in a row,
what did my mate Tomo say once at the general meeting at the golf club? They were talking about some issue which had been hanging around for years, and he said, "Fellas, it's like eating an elephant. You can walk around it for as long as you like, but at some point you're going to have to take a bite."
Very good.
Anyway, the circus I was just getting to at VidantaWorld is actually done in partnership with Cirque du Soleil. It could be quite spectacular. I don't know. I'm in on VidantaWorld.
Sounds
no
like
space, capital W.
Someone is
looking
pitching for a vanille trip here. Yeah.
The golf, as for the golf, it's there's a couple of courses there, but this event is being played on the Norman signature course, Vedanta Vallarta, which was built in 2015. It's been there and played at this course for a few years now. It's not far from the Pacific coastline, but I wouldn't characterise this as a seaside course. It's very much a resort course, wide fairways, very little rough, lush green paspalum fairways, which is good for that climate, I think. Pancake flat and water in play on around 14 holes.
Greg's done a lot of work in the Mexico kind of and the sort of territories of the US as well.
Yeah, indeed.
It's just interesting. It seems
Massive
like every time you go and play down there, it's always Greg.
He's your go-to for that sort of area, isn't he?
Yeah.
We forget what a massive figure he was in the 80s and 90s.
And particularly like being American, close to America, and having a non-American to design golf courses,
absolutely.
I think was probably a huge pitch.
Indeed. Yep. This is going to suit a long hitter, and you can't change my mind about that. It's going to be a long hitter here. Jake Knapp is defending champion. He's back again. He's a very long hitter. There's a lot of talk about Akshay Bhatia going into this week because, frankly, the field isn't very strong, and Akshay is by far the standout player in this field. and it's helped a little bit by he's in good form. He had a top 10 last week at the Genesis. Rod will no doubt have his attention drawn to both Hørgaards playing. I quite like Michael Thorbjornsen as well. I think he's an interesting player. He's playing, but he's not my pick. Patrick Rogers, who we mentioned earlier, is also in there. And this genuine opportunity for him with a relatively weak field. We'll see if he can do it, but there's a couple of Australians he has to overcome, Aaron Badley and Carl Phillips. Carl Phillips, I think, is one to watch this week as well.
He's set for a big year, Carl. Yeah.
And big hitting.
Big hitter. So Aaron Badley, nope. But Carl, not at this course. But Carl Phillips, genuine chance here, I think.
I hope Aaron hears that. Will be just the inspiration he needs to fire up this week.
Yeah.
Not at this
I just
course.
don't. This is a really bad.
Don't you Ferguson me.
Yeah.
Ryan Fox is playing as well, and he'd be looking for a good result on PGA Tour, and this might be a good chance for him with his length.
Is there anybody you haven't picked in the field, like?
I'm just giving you the highlights.
That's comprehensive.
My actual pick is a bit of an outside chance. He's a big hitter, one of the biggest hitters in the field. Trey Mullinax. He's a one-time winner on tour. He's currently playing on a major medical exemption, but he's got a bit of a crook hip or back, I think. I don't know.
We all
but he's been back for a few tournaments now and playing quite well. And I think this is a good course fit for him.
Great name too. One of the
great
best
name.
names on the PGA.
I'm a big Trey Mullinax.
I was sure you were going to be a Bo Jack Hosler. New Jack Hosler. What's his name? What do you call him?
New Jack Hosler.
New Jack Hosler.
Yeah. He's just not. I don't know. He's not quite long enough. Good all round game. Yeah.
So he's not in the Ferguson.
Big New Jack Hosler.
No,
It's just
New Jack Hosler. Look at the Texas swing for New Jack Hosler.
I'll be back.
That'll be
for
All right.
Yeah.
I look forward.
Rod, a tip from you?
Michael Kim, best pro follow on Twitter. Not one of the long hitters, which will work against him, as you say, but with his sort of game, apart from Greg Chalmers, one of the best professional followers on Twitter, of course. Solid week at Torrey last week. His confidence will be up, and why not? This is the sort of, as you said, it's not the strongest field. It's a real opportunity for a player like Michael Kim, if he's playing well, which he is. So
Nice. You mentioned my player in your preview, Ryan Fox.
yeah,
Hits it a mile.
Yeah.
Is in good nick at the moment. Like looks fit and healthy, and is determined to make this PGA Tour thing work. So he's going and playing those events.
This is a big chance.
Looks like, I believe, he's not going to play the New Zealand Open, which was originally what his plan was, which suggests to me he's got to stay in the PGA Tour and he's chasing something else. So and Foxy's the kind of guy, it would mean a lot to play the New Zealand Open. It would mean a lot to miss it. So he's going to want to make good out of doing those sort of things. So, he'll have a good week this week. On we go and continue with the DP World Tour and a tournament close to me and my heart, the magical Kenya Open. But Rod, you're going to take us through it.
Why is it close to you?
Why is it close to your
Because
heart?
my brother lives in Kenya.
Does he?
Oh, okay.
Will he be there this week? Why haven't we
He
got him on the
may
blower?
actually be, yeah.
We should have him on the blower doing the preview. Why am I doing all the work?
Yeah, I don't think he'd be
Manual,
quite up to it. No.
Fair enough.
And I think he might be a member of Mathaiga.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's kind of two premier golf courses,
Yeah.
it seems, in Kenya there, and Karen Golf Club, which this tournament has bounced between over the years. It's at Mathaiga, did you? Mathaiga?
Mathaiga.
Mathaiga Country Club. So, pardon me. Ouch. Like so many of these tournaments, Jimmy, extraordinary history which you wouldn't expect. The Kenyan Open was first played in 1968 as part of the Far East Circuit, which folded into something called the Safari Circuit, which was then taken over by the European Tour in the 70s. And a lot of those events became Challenge Tour events in the 90s, and then a few have sort of elevated up, and this is one that's been elevated up. It joined the European Tour proper in 2019. But have a go at the winners list. Seve, Ian Woosnam, Trevor Immelman, Christy O'Connor Jr., Ken Brown, Eamon Darcy, Brian Barnes. These were the days when you'd have those sorts of players come to these parts of the world and play golf. Just does not happen anymore the way the game's evolved, and we're probably never going back to it. A little bit like exhibition golf when you'd have to, and in some ways that's a shame because anybody would want to put their name on that trophy with those names, wouldn't they? I mean, you won the same tournament as one of those guys, so
It's a magical list of winners.
it is a magical list. Magical, by the way, I think is just a catch-all for it's a tourism.
It's Kenyan
drop.
tourism.
Kenyan tourism. Come to Kenya. There's lots of things to do, including play golf. So important tournaments. This has not got the best of the European Tour. There are some very good players in the field, which makes it an excellent opportunity for those lesser-known players. Bit like this week on the US Tour. The big stars aren't there, so it gives them more of a chance to perhaps win one for, maybe perhaps their first or whatever. Played in Nairobi, as we said, only ever on 2 courses, this one on the Karen Country Club. The course itself is a course of 2 halves. First 9 built in 1913 on a hilly terrain. Second 9 built 13 years later on a flat piece of land across the road. So it's definitely a course of 2 halves. Lots of man-made lakes on that second 9 to sort of make things interesting. Most reviewers seem to agree that the first 9 is by far the more interesting, and that would be my take too, having watched the tournament a couple of times, is that it tends to be more interesting golf when you've got some undulation. Scoring is what you'd expect for tournament golf, sort of 12 to 18 under range is usually the winning score. There's lots of local professionals get a start here as well. Good for them to measure themselves against players who are sort of world class. Of the names people will recognise, Hao Tong Lee, who won the Qatar Masters last week, he's an extremely exciting player to watch because you have no idea.
No,
I don't think he
neither
knows.
does he,
Yep.
which is the great thing about it. He just gets on with it and whacks it again. He and Angel Hidalgo are probably the 2 best names. Hidalgo won the Spanish Open last year, if you remember. Similar kind of player. Can do anything, both good or bad, so they're exciting to watch. Lots of DP World stalwarts here, guys who've won here before, Guido Migliozzi and Jorge Campillo, both former winners. Bernd Wiesberger, not back to his pre-live best yet. Adrian Otaegi, those are the sorts of names. 3 Australians in the field, Daniel Gale, Danny Liston, Brett Colletta. I did not know almost anything about Danny Liston until the last couple of weeks, Jimmy. What a story.
Yeah. Tony Webex man, Danny List. It is quite a remarkable story. So Western Australia, spent quite a bit of time there.
Yeah. Ghana, I think. His mother's Ghanaian.
Ghanaian, yeah, that's right. And then has been in the States for quite a while. Played last week on the Charlie Sifford exemption. So will be the only person, I would say, going from Torrey Pines to the magical Kenya Open. So maybe factor that into your Danny List expectations this week.
It's a fair trip. Still goes back to Ghana, has a foundation there, goes back there regularly, promotes the game, coaches juniors. Really, really nice story. If you get a chance, Google Danny List and have a bit of a read. I was really impressed. The other one that's interesting is Brett Colletta. Now, 7 or 8 years ago, Brett Colletta was the next big thing. Someone I can't recall who, a very good judge, described him as pound for pound the best golfer we've had for a very long time. Yeah. Smallish bloke, hits it a mile, really good player. Lost his way a bit. Playing these kinds of events is going to be very good for a player like Brett Colletta, I think. A lot of those guys early in their career get lots and lots and lots of legs up because they're making a name for themselves. He played the Memorial, if I'm not mistaken, alongside Ryan Ruffles and one other Australian, maybe Curtis Luck, when those 3 amateurs were... When they stop happening, those free invites, you really find out about what a golfer's got inside, and I think this could be really good for Brett Colletta this week.
Had a decision to make this year as well because he went to that live promotional event and played pretty well. There was no one went through, but got an Asian Tour card, an International Series card through his finish there. Basically, you've got to make a decision. You go one or the other in terms of your DP World with his category out of the Australasian Tour, or you go to the International Series. Took quite a lot of time, a lot of discussions with people, and this has been the decision.
It's a tough choice.
Yeah, and I had some chats with Brett. I know Brett very well, and a lot of time for Brett, and it was a big choice, but he's the kind of guy who makes that choice and then goes and has success.
Yeah.
He's
too good a player.
He is
too good.
Ogilvy said a couple of guys, but it should be a top 50 player in the world.
If he sticks at it,
he's that good.
Should get there as well. Like, if someone like Brendan Jones's career teaches us anything, like if you've got some talent and you persist at it,
and you find your
you can
place.
find a place to play,
right.
Correct.
Which Brendan Jones did for many years, and then eventually he's got this second thing. But Brett Colletta can make a living out of this.
Yeah, no doubt. What did he shoot? He shot 10 or 12 under in the first round of the New South Wales Open, I think, as an amateur out at Stonecutters Ridge a few years ago.
Not afraid to go low.
No, extraordinary golf, extraordinary talent. Talent does not disappear. So he still has that talent, and I think this will be the beginning of the making of him in some ways. So best of luck to Brett Colletta. It'll be an interesting tournament in that way. If you're a real golf nerd, these are the tournaments that you really like to look at and see how these kinds of guys are going, because in a year or two we might be talking about Brett Colletta on a much bigger stage. However, I'm not tipping Brett. I'm going to tip Angel Hidalgo just because I love the way he plays. I'd like to see him on TV.
Nice.
Him and Hao Tong Lee in the final group would be something, wouldn't it?
It'd be something, that's for sure.
A lot of marshals doing a lot of work.
Yeah, that's right. Logue?
I'm going with Guido Migliozzi. I think he's potentially got Ryder Cup ambitions.
He does.
Absolutely.
And a really good year this year. It might get him there, and this is where he sort of has to start flexing.
Nice.
Did he hit that 3-wood into the last at Le Golf National? That cutting 3-wood across the water, and just one of the most extraordinary shots. I think it was 2023. Still can't imagine how he did it. So that's the sort of player you want to follow, Logue. Well done.
Good pronunciation too. Yeah. I'm going to go with Eugenio Chikara. I think there's a lot to watch there.
There's a bit bubbling there, isn't there?
There's something happening there.
And he played well under difficult circumstances his first week out of Liv a couple of weeks ago with a lot of those Liv players in the field. So.
Exactly. He is a player he's up for it in a big way. So that will be worth watching. Now, it is a festival of TGL going on right now. We've missed 2 because they're going that early, but we've got 2 more to go. But they used to call them Super Saturday in the NRL and that sort of stuff where they just play everything. I don't know what's the deal, but 4 TGL matches this week. A couple already burnt, as I said. But interesting to see the TGL announced during last week that they were changing the hammer rules. Very good to see that ongoing, feedback from crowds and players has clearly made them go, okay, we didn't get that right, let's change it.
Yeah, Liv were very good at that early on.
Liv did that very early on as well and were very good at it. So it's really good
just
to see.
Comfortable enough to say, it looks like we got that bit wrong. Let's just fix it now.
So first match from us, the number 1 TGL tipping podcast in the world, according to one man in Kentucky, is Bay Golf Club versus Boston Common Golf. My team, Boston Common, of course, so I'll be tipping Boston. But Boston is Keegan Bradley, Rory McIlroy, Hideki Matsuyama, no Adam Scott this week, against the Bay Golf Club, Shane Lowry, Ludwig Aubert, and Wyndham Clark. Some tips from both of you.
Well, I think the Bay are coming off what is shaping up as a grueling match in progress at the moment with Atlanta.
Doubleheader is hard.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and look, we've just seen Atlanta themselves overcome my LA Golf Club.
Rod's Atlanta.
Rod's Atlanta, which, really, I'm not happy about
worse,
at all.
Yeah.
And they're showing that it's actually quite tough to back up like that against the Bay.
Why? You're not doing any walking. What's tough about it?
Never mind, Rod.
Never mind.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm not sure you know what the heat of the SoFi Centre can be like. It's a pretty tough cauldron there. Yeah.
The lights are probably really hot.
Indeed.
Yeah. The food might not be exactly what they want or chef prepared either.
Yeah.
Anyway,
might have a run in your sock. You never know.
That's all to say that I'm going with Rory's Boston. Going to be fresh. They're going to be ready to take on. Oh, that's just ruined it for me. But yeah, okay. No, I'm sticking with that. Rory's Boston. Okay. Are we doing the second?
No, well, Rod's got to give his one
Okay,
first.
sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go Bay because even though I think Boston will win, it's important for the purposes of the podcast that we get a result. I mean, a 2-horse race, if all 3 of us tip one team, that just doesn't make any sense,
exactly.
does it? So,
and we missed out on having TGL last week to boost our win numbers. Not that we're doing that, dear listener, but yeah.
Notch up another one for the team there. Bay.
Exactly. Then it goes to Jupiter Lynx taking on New York Golf Club. So Jupiter Lynx this week will be Tiger Woods, Kevin Kisner, Tom Kim against New York, Cam Young, Ricky Fowler, Matt Fitzpatrick. Who do we have there? Logue, you may as well go again because you understand the SoFi Centre so well.
Well, New York have just been rubbish this entire series, and I think that's going to continue. Tiger's Jupiter Lynx had a confidence-building win recently, and I think they're just going to keep building on that confidence and overcome New York.
Nice. So, I think, to be honest, Tiger's was putting in some work to play last week. So Tiger was getting himself ready and then his mother passing away and a few other things. Yep. I think Tiger's going to be actually getting ready to go.
You've got Tom Kim sort of linchpinning that team as well, and Kisner performing above expectations.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think Kisner's been dragged along.
Set a very low expectation in his first appearance.
Yeah, that's right. Rod, your tip?
I'm going to go with Tiger's team as well for the same reason. I think Tiger's got a bit of a score to settle because he had some awful showings in the last couple of weeks. He had that one wedge that he missed by 20 or 30. Yeah. He won't be happy with. Well, I don't think he probably missed it that far. There was questions about the tracking centre, but yes, I think Tiger will get him across line because you're right. New York have been awful. Despite
what we just said about one of us picking the other, I'm not doing it. I'm going Jupiter because Matt Fitzpatrick, if we think Tiger struggled with the thing, first up, Matt Fitzpatrick just complained about it being further right and all this. So he's rattled. He's got no chance.
Outside the world's top 50, I think.
Yeah,
Fitzpatrick has fallen.
No, world rankings be damned. He's not got the SoFi Centre under control. He's got no idea how that thing's working. Cam Young is carrying his team. And he's been playing actually a lot of golf, so he's probably not that ready to go here. So it's Jupiter for me.
The SoFi curse. Fitzpatrick is the first victim.
That's right. Yeah. Imagine if he'd gone by next season, crushing. I don't know how you come back from that.
No.
He's sort of malfunctioned, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's
he's a big data
rattled
guy.
him. It's just like, huge data guy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Records every golf shot. Does he record these? He probably thought about that for like 6 weeks.
He's not getting a
Does it go in
predictable
the
result
book?
out of these machines. It's like, I know how I hit it.
Yeah.
Like, I've got all these books to prove it.
Yeah, that's right. He wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, exactly. That will just about do us for episode 100. Rod, should we do another 100?
Well, it's not really up to us, Jim.
It's
up
not
to the
up to us.
people. We are mere servants.
We are.
We make no decisions here. If the people like it, then we'll get another go.
Okay. If we do another 100, Logue, you might make 100 appearances.
You might actually
We'll
get to
there
100
eventually.
We'll get there eventually.
How many do you reckon you have missed, realistically? 30?
No, well, yeah, maybe something
Probably
like that.
30.
And there's
What have
been-
I missed?
and-
One.
And upon reflection,
reason.
there's been some superstar fill-ins.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Much
and
better,
Porter, not
honestly.
included in that group. You and Porter was here physically. Tony Webeck's done a couple.
Yeah.
Michael Green.
Green, who actually did some...
Yeah,
he's never
Green,
coming
he
back.
was elite.
He
So
made
he's
us
never
look
coming
terrible.
back.
Never coming
And
back.
Matt Burns, of
Matt
course.
Burns, best of the
Favorite of the people.
Just if people please ring in if you want Matt Burns to replace me permanently, I'm quite okay with that.
Oh, very good. All right, you can follow all of the action we've spoken about today and so much more on the Golf Australia magazine website, golfaustralia.com.au, and get out and get a copy of the March issue of the Golf Australia magazine print magazine. Lucas Herbert is on the front, featuring a story about particularly the New Zealand Open, where Lucas will be the star of the show. You'll also see a picture there of Nadine Gohl. Karen Harding has gone and written a story about Nadine Gohl, who is probably Australia's best and most unknown golfer.
Yep. 100%. And a really delightful one. We had her on the thing about golf some time ago. She's fantastic. Reckons she's a better golfer now than she was 25 years ago. And that's something I'd really like to see somebody explore if that's possible.
Yeah, it's fascinating history, and you look at it. I know Martin Blake wrote a lot of stories doing his amateur coverage and everything like that. But, really, really interesting read there. There's a preview of the WPGA Championship, which comes up in a couple of weeks, and plenty more as always. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week on Playing from the Tips.